Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here live again. I am Carolyn Byers, the Education Director at Madison Audubon. And usually I'm out teaching kids in person at schools and community centers around Madison, Wisconsin. I often see about 200 to 300 kids a week. We can't do that right now, unfortunately. So we're trying to bring all of the education programming that we can to you right in your homes or wherever you're watching from. And our governor has ordered us to be safer at home, or requested rather. And so we want you to be safer and funner at home. So you can find all of our lessons, all of our video lessons, and all sorts of other lessons too on the Madison Audubon webpage. That's madisonaudubon.org. And on our Safer and Funner page is where we're housing all of these really cool lessons for kids and people who just want to hang out and pretend they're kids a little bit because it's fun. All right, so today I am going to be talking about bird identification because birds are super cool and you don't always have to identify the birds to be able to enjoy them. In fact, you really don't have to do that. You can just watch the birds and see what they're doing and learn from them. But it's also really fun to know which birds you're looking at because that tells you a little bit about, I don't know, what the birds might be doing or what, well, you just, by knowing what the bird is, you know a lot more about them. And so we're going to talk about how to use field guides and some kind of tips that will help you identify these birds, okay? So if you want, on our Safer and Funner webpage, and we're going to link below in the comments, we have the Madison Audubon Bird Guides for Kids. And it's a really awesome document that we created. And it's a bird guide for kids. And it's geared towards kids. Hi, Oakley, good to see you. It's geared towards kids who are living in the Midwest. But most of the birds that are in here are really common species that you can find over most of the United States. So no matter where you're from, you can still use this guide for a lot of the birds. All right, so it looks like the link is in the comments. So if you want to check it out, you can, but you don't need to have that open for this lesson, I promise. Exciting. Let's get into it. I'm sorry. One more thing. During this lesson, I will be doing 8-minute notes at the end. Hi, Caitlin. Good to see you. I'm going to be doing 8-minute notes at the end. So if you want to join in on that, you might need a paper and a pencil, or a few sheets of paper if you want. And there's also going to be some opportunity to write down some notes about a bird that I'm showing you. So if you want to join in on those things, grab a paper and a pencil now, okay? All right. So usually when I do this in person, the first thing I ask people is, are you a birder? Do you already watch birds and try to figure out what they are and what they're doing? And usually when I do this, most of the kids in the class, they don't think they're birders. They don't think they know much about birds at all. And I think most people know a lot more about birds than they think they do. So I'm going to run through some birds and I want you to think about whether or not you know what those birds are. And if you want, you can comment. I can see all of your comments. It's awesome. So leave me questions, leave me excited stories about what birds you're seeing. I'm ready to read them. Okay, so if you think that you are not a birder, I want you to think about this. Do you know what a bald eagle looks like? Probably. What about a hummingbird? In Wisconsin, we really only have ruby-throated hummingbirds, so you got one there. How about a mourning dove? A lot of people know mourning doves. It's okay if you don't know all of these. I'm just running through some common ones. What about a pigeon? Some people call them rock doves. A crow, an American crow, that's 5. How about a Canada goose? That's 6. Most people know what geese look like. A mallard duck, 7. How about a bluejay? That's 8. Maybe a cardinal, 9. And how about a goldfinch? And goldfinches may be tricky. So what about a great blue heron? What about a sandhill crane? That's a common one we see in Wisconsin. That's 10 birds, maybe more than 10 birds. I forgot a robin. People know what robins are too. So all of you who thought you weren't birders, I think you are, because you already know a handful of birds. And so how did you know that a robin is a robin and an eagle or a bald eagle is a bald eagle, right? All of these people are saying, yes, you totally know these birds. That's awesome. So how did you know what one of those birds is and how it's not the other one, right? Turkey vulture, yes. I love the comments. I love how distracting they are. They're good. And a robin, perfect. So the reason that we're able to identify birds and tell one from the other is it's called field marks. And field marks are really anything that helps us identify a bird. It could be their size, their body shape, the shapes of parts of their body. It could be colors and where the colors are on their body. That's a really useful one. So all of these things are field marks that help us identify a bird. So let's see, one of the ones we talked about was a bluejay. And that has a lot of really easily recognizable field marks. It's got this blue back, it has a black eye stripe and a black necklace on, and it has a big crest on its head. This crest is down right now, but it pops up kind of like a triangle hat. So a bluejay has these field marks, but we can do this with anything. So my field marks today are that I have brown on the top of my head. I have a gray belly with some white streaking on it. I have black eye rings around my eyes. And I have weird markings under my ears that kind of seem to move around a lot. They must be very long feathers. So we can use field marks to describe really anything, but we're talking about birds today. And the super cool thing about field marks is that scientists and authors and illustrators put together field guides that help you figure out what a bird is. So you don't have to sit and study your field guide and learn all the birds in it. You can go out into the world and see a bird and either take a picture or remember the field marks, maybe write it down in your nature journal, maybe make a little drawing in your nature journal, and then you can go back later at home and look it up in your field guide. So you can take a long time to do it. You might only see the bird for just a moment, and that's when you need to really focus on what the bird looks like. Then you can go look in your field guide, which is so cool. All right, so I have two different field guides here, and I already talked a little bit about this one. So this is a field guide that was made for mostly adults. I know a lot of kids use them, but this field guide has all of the birds in Eastern and Central North America. And this happens to be the Peterson guide. There's a lot of really good guides. I like Peterson. I like Sibley, Kaufman. It's all about what you want to do. But this book has hundreds of birds in it. And so if you're just starting out birding, and I mean this for adults or kids, it can be a little overwhelming if you're trying to figure out what a bird is with this huge field guide. It can be really fun, but it can be a little overwhelming. So I think when you're just starting out, if you're a grown-up or if you're a kid, I think it's really nice to have a field guide with a smaller amount of birds. And maybe I'll link some in the comments later that are good for adults or adults that are helping kids, because they have some really great ones that are just for Wisconsin, and you can find them for other states too. But this field guide for kids, the bird guide for kids, Madison Audubon bird guide for kids, has, I wonder how many birds are in it. Looks like about 25 or so. 25 birds that are most common in neighborhoods or parks around Wisconsin. And so it's a really good place to start because it's going to be all of the birds that are most common, which is great. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use a field guide now, okay? And if you have the field guide at home and or whatever field guide you're using, you can use that at home with me. And if not, you can also write down notes about the birds that we're talking about so you can look them up in a field guide later, okay? So I'm going to show you a picture of a bird, and then I'm going to talk you through how I would identify it. And I'm definitely starting out with easy birds, because this is mostly a video for kids, but I think this will be useful for adults too. Okay, so the first bird, and listen, I say this to kids in the classroom, and we'll see if all of you guys are better at it than kids are. I'm going to show you a bird, and we want it to be a mystery bird for a little while, okay? So if you know what this bird is, don't say it yet. It's a secret, okay? Don't say it. And I will tell you when it's time to tell me what it is, okay? I won't ruin the surprise yet. Okay, here we go. So this is our first bird. And this bird is about the size of a robin. And that's the first thing I do when I see a bird that I don't know. I try to think about how big it is. And you can either think about it in terms of other birds that you know. So those birds that I talked about in the very beginning, the robin, the goose, the eagle, the hummingbird, chickadee. A lot of people know chickadees. Those are the birds that are good to compare the size to because a lot of people know those birds. You can also compare them to fruit. So maybe this bird is about the size of a lemon. Fruit's a little trickier though, because I've seen some really big lemons and some really small lemons. So anyways, this bird is about the size of a robin. And this bird, I'm noticing the field marks are really distinct. It is an all black bird. These light spots up here are just the light shining on it. And so it's an all black bird, except for the spots on its wing where it is red and yellow. And scientists have named all the parts of a bird. So if you're really excited about birds and field marks, you can go and learn all those parts. And these are actually called epaulets, and they're sort of right on the bird's shoulders. So this bird has red and yellow epaulet feathers, right? Now, beaks and feet are also really important for identifying birds. And you can learn a lot about the bird beak shape because sparrows and vireos and warblers, and finches, they all have different shaped beaks, and that helps you identify them. So this bird has kind of a pointy beak, but not super pointy. And I want to remind everybody to not mention what the bird is in the comments because we're keeping it a secret for now. And this bird also has nice black or gray legs, black and gray beak. Okay, so I'm remembering all of these field marks, and if I saw it in the field, I would have tried to make a really quick mental picture of it so that I could remember it, and maybe I would write it down too, because that helps. Okay, so now I'm going to open up my field guide, and I'm going to look through it. And this Madison Audubon guide, and many of the other guides too, they have a picture of the bird, and this is not the bird we were looking at. This is just an example bird. This is a bluejay. It's backwards, but it says bluejay. All right, so it has the name of the bird. It has a picture of the bird. And this one has a little bit of the size reference for the bird. Okay, so this is a teeny tiny bird, and this is a really big goose. And this bird here, the bluejay, is somewhere in the middle. Okay, so this is not our bird. It's a bluejay. It doesn't look like that. This is an all black bird, but I'm noticing that it doesn't have the red and yellow feathers up here on the wing. And this is also a pretty big bird, and I think my bird is somewhere down here. So I'm going to say not an American crow. All of these birds have a lot of colors on them. They are not mostly black. Hey, that's our friend the robin. I like that one. Oh, here's another all black bird. This one has lots of speckling and iridescent colors on it, and I'm also noticing that the beak is yellow and the feet are pinkish. And so this is not our bird either. It's a starling. Let's see what else we have. Oh, hey, okay. So this is another all black bird. Doesn't have our feathers up there. But this one here is an all black bird. It has the red and yellow patches on the wing. It has the black beak and it has the black legs. So since I have the picture here, I'm going to compare it one more time. That's our bird. We got it. So everybody say it all at the same time. Link it in the comments. What is it? I'm going to wait for you. I'm not going to wait. There's a delay. But I am noticing here that there are two different pictures under the red-winged blackbird. And I am sorry that this is all backwards, guys. It's trouble. So there are two different pictures here because this one is the male and this one is the female. And so the one we were looking at was the male because it matches the male. And this bird is tricky because, yeah, you're all commenting now. All right, the lag caught up. We have a red-winged blackbird. Beautiful. So this bird can be a little tricky because the male and the female look different. I think it's really cool because then when you're looking at the bird, you know if you're looking at a male or a female, a boy or a girl. So remember, if you see a streaky brown bird, it might not be a sparrow. It could be a red-winged blackbird. And let's just check the size here. So the size did match. It's a smallish bird, about the size of a robin. And this field guide also has some really cool facts about it. So it lives in marshes, agricultural fields, pastures. You can see them in open fields, and it looks for food on the ground. Very cool. It also says that the song is conklery, and they also say kek, 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 kek. And speaking of sounds, tomorrow we're going to be doing a bird call ID, so you can join in there too. All right, so we spent enough time, I think, on this red-winged blackbird, and let's go find another bird to identify. Okay, and let's do one that's a little trickier. Okay, so I'm going to remind you all that this is a secret until the end, and this video is mostly for kids, so please don't ruin the surprise, okay? I know a lot of birders are watching right now, and you can totally, I know you know it. So this is our mystery bird, and if I was noticing this when I was out birding, I would try to get all of the field marks as quickly as I could. So the first thing I noticed is that this bird is kind of hanging upside down. And this picture is actually a little bit large. So this bird is maybe about this big in size. So it's a small bird, maybe just a little bit bigger than a chickadee. It actually looks a little bit like a chickadee. So this bird is hanging upside down on the tree, and that's not something many birds do. So that's a big clue already. It has a white belly and white cheeks, and it has a black cap on its head and a little black collar around, but it's not a necklace. It doesn't go all the way around. It's got some white wing bars. That's what we call it when they have little stripes on their wings. We call them wing bars. And it has a bluish back. Beautiful. And this bird does have a grayish black beak and a very dark black eye. Okay, and I'm really proud of everyone in the comments for not saying anything yet. Good job. So now let's pretend this bird flew away. We can't look at this picture again. And let's go through our field guide again. And actually, I see on the cover of this bird, a picture of a bird that looks a lot like it, but it doesn't say the name on it, so we still have to look for it. Okay, let's look through. So we have our bluejay again, not a bluejay. These birds are not the right color. They're a little bit big. Oh, this one is close to the right color. But I remember that our bird was white on its throat and on its chest, and it was much more blue on its back. This is the right size, though. It's about the size of a chickadee, because this is a chickadee. Hey, that one looks pretty similar. Let's check our field marks. Okay, so it has a white cheek, like our bird. It has a white belly. It has a blue back. I don't see the white wing bar here, but you know, when birds open and close their wings, sometimes you can see things like that and sometimes you can't. I'll cover up the name. I'm sorry. I might have ruined it already. If you know what this bird is, you can all share it now, okay? Type it in the comments, share what it is. Thank you for holding off until it was the right time. Go! And remember, this bird does have its black cap and the black collar, not a necklace, and it has that dark gray beak. So this is our bird. Everybody say it. I'm waiting for the lag to catch up. I don't want to say it yet, although you all won't know because there's a lag. It's a nuthatch. And I'm going to compare our birds next to each other So now we can see this is our white-breasted nuthatch. And there's actually two nuthatches that live in Wisconsin. One is the red-breasted and one is the white-breasted. So it's a really good idea to look at it very closely so you can tell the difference. Cool. All right. So the birds that we looked at so far were pretty easy to identify. And I want to, let me see. Okay. I don't have big pictures for these birds, but I want to show you an example of why it's really important to be as specific as possible when you're thinking about field marks. So everybody look at this robin, okay? Now, sometimes when I ask kids, what are the field marks of a robin? They say orange belly, black head, black back, and they leave it at that. And that is true, but then I show them this bird. And that also has an orange belly, black head, and a black back. So if you're trying to describe a bird, these two are definitely different species, but orange belly, black back, black head does describe both of them. So then I ask them to be more specific. So we have a belly that is brick red or brick orange, or maybe even light orange. We have a head that is black, but a back that is gray. Then kids start talking about how this one has a yellow beak and it has peachish, pinkish legs. And then when you look at this bird, we have a bright orange belly, like the fruit orange, right? We have a jet black head and a jet black back. We have wings with some white wing bars. We have a beak that is sort of like a slate gray color. And we have legs that are also gray. So now that we're using all of our descriptive words, really descriptive colors and really descriptive, we're talking really specifically about where the colors are on the birds, not just an orange belly, but orange all the way under the belly over through the tail, and orange only on the belly and white under the tail, okay? That's a way to be even more descriptive so that we can make sure that the way we're describing the birds will really help us identify it later in the field guide, okay? Because right now, I mean, I have these pictures that I can just hold up and look at again. And that's cool if you're practicing, but usually if you see a bird, it doesn't stick around for a very long time. So you need to get really good pictures or a mental picture or drawings or writings about your bird before it flies away. It's like a game. Okay, so I'm gonna hold up another mystery bird and I'm gonna walk through the, well, actually, I think I'm gonna let you walk through the identification, okay? I'm not gonna tell you what I see. Let me find a good one for this. Okay, I've got a good one. So if you have a field guide with you right now, you can flip through it and try to figure out what the bird is. If you don't have a field guide, I want you to grab that piece of paper and your pen, and I want you to write down the field marks that you think are important, all right? And I will tell us what the bird is later, so please don't shout it out if you know what it is. I'm glad there's a delay. And I want you guys to try and figure out what this bird is. All right, so don't say it. This is our mystery bird. I'm going to give you a little hint on size. It's just a bit bigger than a chickadee. It's maybe about this big. And you would see it in forests, sometimes in backyards at bird feeders in Wisconsin, definitely throughout the East. And it's not a super common bird, but not a very rare bird. Okay, so I talked about size and I talked about habitat, and those are two really important things to remember when you're trying to figure out what a bird is. So next, I want you to look at the beak and the feet, and I want you to see if there's anything exciting about that. So make notes if you don't have a field guide, that's okay. And this bird maybe doesn't have anything particularly exciting about its beak and its feet, but some birds do. So we've already ruled those birds out. Next, I want you to look at color. And I want you to see if there's anything Anything that you can write down. What's the color on the belly? What's the color on the back? What's the color on the head? What color is the eye? While we're looking at this, we're going to look at all of the other feathers too. Is the tail very long or very short? Is the tail held up at a really weird angle, or is it just looking more like you would think a normal bird tail looks? What about on the head? Is there anything exciting going on up here? What's that? I think our Bluejay had one of those too. Take a look at the proportions of the bird. Is the neck very long? Is it very short? Are the legs very long? Is it very short? Oh, I'm sorry, my neighbors are being a little loud right now. Just make note of anything that really sticks out at you as being interesting, okay? All right, so I think we have spent enough time looking at the field marks of this bird. So if anybody knows what it is, now's the time to say it, and I'm gonna go find it in our field guide, okay? Ah, this is another one that's right on the cover. I love these birds. They make me really happy. So I'm gonna flip through really quickly because I think we've done this a few times now. Oh, there it is. Okay, so remember I said that this bird was just a little bit larger than a chickadee? On our size guide, it says that it's actually the same color as a chickadee. Here's our chickadee. This bird is a tufted titmouse. Good job, you guys got it. That's awesome. And the field marks that I was noticing, let's see how I can do this. Perfect. I was noticing that it had a crest on its head. That's really important. They both have a crest. And remember that birds can move their feathers. So sometimes their crest can be pointed up, sometimes it can be down on their head. So you may or may not see the crest looking as big as it is here. They have a gray back. They have a cream belly with a little bit of peachy color underneath their wing. They have a black beak and a black eye and a little black patch right on its forehead right here. And they have a gray tail, and they don't hold their tail in a weird way. So this is our tufted titmouse, and I'm so glad you all were able to identify it. Are you ready for a challenging one now? Let's do it. Okay. I think I'm going to jump. Let's do two more, okay? I'm going to do one kind of hard one and one ultra challenging super science round, okay? Okay, so this is your mystery bird. Please don't say it yet. I'm going to talk about the field marks, okay? Remember, if you don't have a field guide, that's okay. Just remember the field marks, write them down so you can check them out later, okay? All right, so this is our next mystery bird. And this one is, it's probably about the size of a robin, okay? And the things that I'm noticing here are the big, big beak. Oh, I was supposed to walk you through this. I'm not supposed to tell it already. So notice things like the beak and the feet and see if there's anything exciting about them, okay? Check them out. Look if they're noticeable. I also want you to look at the color patterns on the bird. All right. Are there any very high contrast areas, which means really dark next to really light? Do you see any stripes perhaps that would help you identify what this bird is? Maybe any spots? Take a look at the tail. You can't see the whole thing here, but it's not much longer than this. It's pretty short. And I would notice that this bird seems to be pushing its tail right against this tree trunk that it's on. Or maybe it's a telephone pole. I don't know. Let's see. It does have a little pop of color right here. If I hold the card right, you can see it. Okay. So if anybody knows this bird, now you can shout it out. Okay. We'll see how good you are. This is kind of a tricky one, or it can be if you don't know what to look for. All right, you're able to say it right now if you want. Let me look for it in my field guide. So this bird is one of these two. These are two really common woodpeckers in Wisconsin and in a lot of the United States, actually. So we have the Downy Woodpecker over here and the hairy woodpecker over here. And if they are right next to each other, you can tell them apart pretty easily by their size. The downy is a little bit smaller than the hairy. The downy is maybe, a little bit bigger than a chickadee, so about the size of that titmouse we were looking at. But the hairy is probably closer in size to the robin, so it's quite a bit bigger. But they look almost identical, and if they're not right next to each other, you can't really tell them apart by size unless you're very good at that. So the really big difference in these birds is the size of the beak as compared to the size of the head. So we're talking about proportions here. And let's think about this. So a duck has a big beak too. Let me think about another one. How about an eagle? That has a big beak, but it's short, okay? And a hummingbird is a small bird, but it has a very, very long beak compared to its body. So if we're comparing the beaks side by side, a bald eagle beak is still bigger than a hummingbird beak, right? They're still bigger. But if we're comparing it to the bird's body, a hummingbird's beak is longer than the bird's head, but a bald eagle beak is shorter than the bird's head. Okay, so that's a way to think about proportions if you measure that beak against the head size. So let's do that here. So this downy beak, I need something small to measure it. It's not quite as big as half of the bird's head. This hairy beak is bigger than half of the bird's head. The hairy has a much bigger beak than the downy. So let's look at this bird and see. This bird's beak is longer than half of the bird's head. So this is a hairy woodpecker. High five and 50 life points to anybody who guessed hairy woodpecker. And also high five and 50 life points to anybody who guessed downy and is now like, oh man, I see it. Because that's what birding is all about. It's looking and noticing more details and becoming a better scientist. So learning is great. Okay, so we went through a whole bunch of birds there. We have one more. I said I was going to do a super mystery bird. Okay, this one trips a lot of people up. And I do want it to be a mystery bird. So if you know this bird, please don't share it until I ask for it, okay? So this bird is super cool. And it is pretty small. That's going to be a big tip on this one, okay? So this bird's body is actually about this big. This is kind of life size for this bird, okay? And this bird, you often see it flying at dawn and at dusk, and you sometimes see lots and lots of them funneling into a chimney. That was a pretty big clue. And this bird is an insectivore, which means it eats insects, and it catches them while it's flying. So it means it catches them on the wing. I like that. Let's see. It has pretty long wings for its body, and it has a pretty short body. Some people say it looks like a cigar with wings. All right, so I think we've spent enough time trying to figure it out. If anyone has a guess, you can tell us now and type it in the comments, and I'm going to go look it up in my field guide, okay? All right, so let's see. Not a bluejay, not a crow or a barn swallow. These are all the wrong colors. Not those guys, too bright. Let's see what else we have. Ooh, much too bright, but we know what that is. That's our Baltimore Oriole. Let's see. A lot of people think that it's a type of hawk, like this Cooper's hawk. But I think that's mostly because you don't really have a good size reference when it's just a picture. So this is a really small bird. Let's keep going. Hey, that's it. So our bird, people are saying it. Yes, it's a chimney swift. These little guys, they look like cigars with wings, and they have very, very small feet that they mostly use just to cling onto the sides of a tree like this or on the inside of a chimney. And these birds, they nest inside of chimneys because there's not as many natural old dead trees as there used to be. So congrats to everybody who figured out our last super mystery bird. These are really cool. I hope you can see them. And actually, they are back in Madison. I've been seeing them lately, which is really fun. Okay, So now that we've gone through our birds, I think maybe you guys are ready to go out and go birding. So remember, either bring a camera with you or bring a notepad or, an electronic device if you like to write notes on your phone. But bring something to write some notes on so that you can try to remember the field marks of the birds that you're seeing. And if you want to stick around for 8-minute notes, I'm going to start those right now. So grab your paper and your pen or pencil, and I'm going to try really hard to keep good track of the time. Good track of the time today, okay? I always lose track. All right, so the first thing you need to do for 8-minute notes is to take your piece of paper and make a big plus sign on it. So you're dividing it into 4 parts, okay? And then next, you could write your name on it, but we're not in a classroom with 20 kids, so less important. So write your name on it if you want to, and also write the date. And my computer turned off and I don't have it on my phone. Who can tell us the date? Oh, here we go. It's May 13th. So you can write 5-13-2020, or you can write May 13th, 2020. Both are great. All right, so now that we've got our name and our date on the paper, we can start our 8-minute notes. So if anyone is new to this, you get 2 minutes for each section, and I'm going to tell you what to write. And if you end up finishing what you want to write, you can write more, or you can go back and finish a section that you've already worked on, okay? And 8-minute notes are mostly just for you to remember what you're learning, and it's sort of to help you get started with your nature journal or your science journal. So I don't want you to stress about writing incomplete sentences or using the right spelling or punctuation, unless that's something you're practicing right now. Then you can work on that. Otherwise, just write, and as long as you can understand what you mean, that's enough. Okay, so I want you to pick one of the squares. I usually like to start in the top left one. That was hard for me. I usually like to start in the top left, and this time in that box, you're going to write something cool that you learned today. Okay, ready and go. So you have 2 minutes to write something cool that you learned. And maybe you want to write about the word field marks and what it means. Maybe you want to write about a new bird name that you learned about. If anybody has any questions, either about birds or field guides or identification, you can ask them now and I will answer them in the comments, okay? And if you're watching this at a time when it's not live, ask us questions anyways. We'll come back and answer them, okay? Okay. I see somebody who says they would love to see this class done at Mead. So when it's safe to be back at school and to be teaching in person again, send me an email and I will add my email address in the comments here so that, so it's easy to find, but send me an email. I would love to reach out to classrooms, and I often travel to, lots of different classrooms. So let's be in touch. Okay, you have 1 minute left to write about something cool that you learned today. Write comments or questions if you have them, because I'm here to answer them. I might write about the difference between a robin and a Baltimore Oriole. I think those birds are really cool, and I think it's neat how you can describe both of them using pretty similar words, but you need to use very specific words to differentiate between them. Thank you, Brenna, for adding my email to the comments. You're the best. Everybody, Brenna is our communications director, and she is keeping us afloat these days. She's great. All right, we have 15 seconds left to write about something cool that you learned. I'm going to take a drink of water because it's important to stay hydrated. Okay, 3, 2, 1, stop. All right, if you didn't finish, don't panic. You can always go back later. All right, so the next block that we're going to write about, I usually like to go right next to the one that I just did. You have 2 minutes to write something that you wonder. All right, ready, go. And writing down things that we wonder is really important when you're being a scientist, because scientists are always asking questions and they try to figure out ways to answer their questions, of course, but questions is the first part. So write something you wonder. And it might be that you wonder what kinds of birds are outside your house, outside your apartment, outside your neighborhood. It might be that you wonder what what birds you're going to see next. Um, oh, Shelley, I'm so glad you're going to share this with your preschoolers at home. Yes, if you are an educator or a parent or grandparent, really, if you have any kids in your life, please do feel free to share all of our content with them because we would love for them to be watching this and for them to be learning and experiencing nature. Um, Maisie, who is 4, would like to know more about the color of the chimney swift. Are the wings the same color throughout? You have about 1 more minute to write something that you wondered, everybody. And Maisie, the chimney swift, yeah, they are pretty much the same color all over their whole body. They are a darker brown on the top of their body and a little bit lighter brown underneath. And you can see that they have a little bit of darker coloring right here, but they are mostly the same color, which is kind of cool. And a lot of people really like all the birds that are very brightly colored, and they are exciting. But I think the birds that are mostly brown or streaky or don't really seem to be too flashy, I think they're pretty exciting too, because they're a little bit harder to identify, a little bit sneakier, and I really like them. All right, we have 15 seconds left to write down something that you wonder. All right, V wonders what Canada geese eat. Good question. Canada geese are mostly vegetarians, and so they will eat a lot of grasses and a lot of seeds in the grasses, and they do eat some plants they find in the water too. I'm not a Canada goose expert, so that's about as much as I know about what they eat, but they probably also eat any insects that are crawling on the leaves that they're eating, so they're not entirely vegetarian. That's a good question and definitely something to write down in your wonder box. Okay, Jocelyn 10 wants to know, what are some birds that do not migrate? Excellent question. I'm going to get to that as soon as I start the next part of 8-minute notes, okay? So now you want to choose another box, and you're going to write down something that somebody said, okay? It could be something that I said while I was teaching. It could be something that another person in your home said, so maybe a grown-up, maybe another kid. Could be something you heard someone yell outside, whatever you want, something that somebody said. And ready, go on something someone said. So we are, I know I said that this is not something you need to be worried about during 8-minute notes, but if you want to, when you write down something someone said, you put quotation marks around it, and you can ask a grown-up what those look like. So when you're starting the someone said, you add a quote, and when you're ending it, you add those 2 little lines that mean it's a quotation. And then you usually write who said it. So maybe I said, birds are awesome. You would write Carolyn said, or said Carolyn, okay? All right, so I saw a question about which birds don't migrate, and that question, it depends on where you're living, right? So I'm going to focus on what birds don't migrate in Madison, and that's pretty true in Wisconsin in general, all right? So one of those birds is the Downy Woodpecker. Downy and hairy woodpeckers are here all year long, and they mostly eat insects that they find in tree bark, or not in tree bark, living within the trees. But a lot of birds who are able to stay here year round are able to do that because they can switch food sources. So a chickadee is another one of those birds. Do I have a picture of a chickadee? I don't. I have to look it up in my field guide. Here's a chickadee. This little guy or gal, they can switch their food sources. So during the winter, chickadees eat mostly seeds, and they could be seeds from a bird feeder or seeds from a natural source. Like, has anybody ever seen in a prairie or sometimes in your garden, at the end of the season, plants get all dry and crispy and crunchy. It's called senescing. Those plants, they suck all the nutrients down into their roots. Sometimes they just die. Hey James, good to see you. And their seeds often stay in the flower heads, and sometimes they fall out onto the ground and they get planted. And other times they're waiting for an animal to eat them or carry them somewhere else. So birds that stay in Madison, often they'll eat seeds during the winter, and usually switch to something else during the summer. And chickadees, they eat a lot of insects during the summer. And so that's one way that birds are able to live in a place that changes so drastically in the winter and the summer. Okay, so we talked about the downy and the hairy woodpecker. We talked about chickadees. A lot of robins are starting to stay year-round in Madison too. Oh gosh, I totally forgot about the time on our 8-minute notes. I have no idea how long we've been working on something someone said. So how about we give you 30 more seconds to write down something someone said, and I'm going to keep answering this question, and then we'll do the next one. Robins are starting to say to stay in Madison year-round because winters are becoming milder. They're warming up a little bit due to the climate crisis, but it's really neat that those birds are staying here year-round. So that's another thing to think about, how weather impacts when birds migrate. Some migrate no matter what at the same time because they're responding to the length of daylight. That's their cue to let them know that it's time to either fly south or fly north. Other birds are responding to cues like the temperature and how much snow there is and how much of their food is available. Those birds might be more flexible and they can stick around in the winter if it's a milder winter and leave if it's a very cold winter. Very good question. Okay. So we need to do our last of the 8-minute notes, and then I saw at least one other question that I want to answer, and maybe I can scroll and find some more. So the last section, we're on the last section of 8-minute notes. Awesome. The last one is you're going to draw something. So I would like everybody to think of anything they want that we talked about in this lesson today and draw it. Okay? And you have, I'll say you have 2 minutes, but we all know I'm going to forget the time. So everybody go, start drawing. 2 minutes on something cool that you want to draw today. You could draw a robin and maybe label where the different colors are. It's going to work. Sorry, it paused. You might draw the different field marks of a robin. You might compare a robin and an oriole. You might draw a chickadee, whatever you want. I'm going to go answer some more questions while we're still here, and I hope I don't lose you again. Somebody asked how to tell a male and female downy and hairy woodpecker apart. So I'm going to show you this downy woodpecker. Remember, the hairies have longer beaks, and the male and the females, it's the same for the downy and the hairy. So this is a male because it has this little red patch right on the back of its head. The female does not have it. It's just white there, and then there's the black stripe there. Okay. Oh no, a lot of people are making sad faces. Maybe that's when I blinked out. So this little red patch here means that it's a male. If it was missing, it would be a female. And I wonder, yep, the hairy picture that I have too is also a male. It's got a little red patch back there. Okay. What else did I want to see? Somebody said, what is the difference between blue jays and bluebirds? They're different species of birds, and they actually look pretty different too. So here's our blue jay. It's pretty large. It's bigger than a robin. And it has blue on its back, and it has a white belly. It also has, a lot of other cool things. These markings here and all the black eye stripe and the line here. A bluebird, though, is smaller than a blue jay, smaller than a robin then. And it has very bright blue on its wing and its back and its head. And it has this pale orangey peachy color on the top part of its belly. And then on the lower part, it has this white color. All right, so bluebirds are very different than blue jays. And the other thing is habitat that they live in. Blue jays, they live in a lot of different habitats, definitely in urban or suburban areas. But when they're out in a more natural setting, they typically hang out in forests or maybe forest edges. These bluebirds spend a lot more time in like shrubby areas or grasslands or the edges of grasslands. They don't spend as much time in forests. So that's another good way to help you figure out what it is you're looking at. That was a good question. I was right. I lost track of time. So since this is the last one, you can keep going drawing until until you're done, or you can stop when I'm done with this video. But I wanted to say that I had so much fun today with you. There were a lot of great questions. And if I see any other questions that I didn't answer, I'm going to try to go back in the comments and write you questions about them. Or not questions, I'll answer your questions. So I want everybody to go out and go birding and tell me what new birds they see. Or maybe you see all the same birds, but you notice something new about them. That's really awesome too. And I want to remind you that tomorrow at 12:30 Central Time, that's May 14th, if anyone's watching this not live, I'm going to be teaching a bird call identification class. So just like this, except we're going to be talking about bird calls, because birds, most of them have very different calls. And if you just hear the bird, you can know what it is. So check that video out when it's posted. And I also want to say thank you for joining me. I love seeing over 100 people watching this live. That's wonderful. Thank you. And all of our programming is free for kids. So right now it's free online. And when I'm out teaching in the classrooms, it's free. So if you're able and you feel excited about it, we're going to drop a link in the comments that you can go find our webpage and make a donation. Because nature should be free for everybody, even if, they don't have a lot of extra cash right now. So thank you everyone for making this possible. I appreciate it. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye everybody. And if you were watching and you're from Lincoln Elementary or Muir or Mendota or Midvale or Bayview Community Center or Goodman or Vericourt or Salvation Army, I miss you and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.